Welcome back, everybody, to the Squatchers Lounge podcast. That's right. The Reverend has returned from Expedition Bluff Creek 2019. Wow, what a week it was. I got to tell you, people. Good people, amazing places. Tonight, we've got to wrap up a Camping Tips for Stupids, a Quasi Rewind, and a Bigfoot campfire story. How could it get any better than this? Well, hang on, it's about to get interesting. That is for sure. Hello, everybody out there. I am indeed your host of this mess, the Reverend Jeff Kelly. August 1st is going away for quick streaming, so this will be the last time that I use the quick stream for this type of podcast. But don't worry, I've got something up my sleeve to keep going, so don't worry about that at all. That's right, we are back from Expedition Bluff Creek this year, and it was absolutely amazing. But we do have some news, some quick news to talk about. There's a bunch of newsy stuff that has come up since I was gone, and then there was an interesting interaction that I had earlier today that I will share with you as well. Yeah, look at that. It's not going to do it, or it's going to freeze on me. One or the other. Not sure which. There we go. Didn't freeze. Yay, us. Look at the hairy frog. That's right. You'd have thought that sucker was dreamt up in a monster movie, but apparently not. Yeah, this thing is a Trichobatrachus robustus, or the horror frog that lives in Central Africa. Holy crap, dude! I don't know. I don't think I want to meet this thing. It doesn't look like it's very big, but it still would be scary as hell. Hairy frog from hell. That's right. Check it out. Now, what's going on, people? Shots fired at Mammoth Cave over an alleged Bigfoot sighting. Okay. Weekend camping trip in the backcountry at Mammoth Cave National Park quickly took a dramatic turn for one couple. They were woken up in the middle of the night to strange noises and were met with an individual saying that something had destroyed their campsite. Brad Ginn, one of the campers, said that the individual also said it was Bigfoot country, which seemed to be a little weird that he would say that. The individual then informed them that he was searching for whatever had destroyed his campsite and warned them to be careful. Madeline Durand, a camper, said, he said, I hope you have weapons. And then he flashed his gun at us like, I have this. So if anything happens to you, then just yell and I'll come. The couple then decided to head back to their tent, but moments later heard gunshots. They dialed 911 and hiked 5 miles back to their car in the parking lot to meet up with the park rangers. Mammoth Cave's public information officer, Molly Schroer, stated Mammoth Cave National Park law enforcement rangers responded to a reporting of an individual with a firearm in one of the backcountry campsites in the early mornings of hours of Sunday, July 28th. The rangers made contact with all the parties involved, and it's an ongoing investigation at this time. Sam Squanch, it was that damn dirty Sam Squanch. I hate those fuckers. All right. Oregon man at 93 still walks the woods in search of Bigfoot. That's right. Of course, they are talking about the Oregon's Coast Range has a pastime most of us wouldn't expect. He may be in his 90s, but he's not stopping his hunt for Bigfoot. The great Peter Byrne has spent much of his life searching for Sasquatch. In fact, back in the 1970s, Byrne ran the Bigfoot Information Center headquarters. We decided to track him down after seeing his name in recently released FBI documents that show, at least for a little while, the Bureau was actually looking into Bigfoot, thanks to Byrne, who sent the agency a hair sample he thought was suspicious. By the way, it turned out to be deer. Ungulate. Yeah, that's right. Deer. All right. An event honors celebrated Bigfoot researchers' birthday. The Creature Weekend will be holding the 8th annual Creature Weekend Conference, October 8th to the 20th at Salt Fork State Park, sponsored by the Cryptid Hunters of North America. This year's event includes a Friday night presentation to honor no other than Bob Gimlin's 88th birthday, which includes the individual speeches from cryptozoologists celebrating Bob's life in Bigfooting, presentation of a special banner to Bob signed by all the dinner attendees, and the special presentation by James Vieira. co-host of the History Channel Search for the Lost Giants and co-author of Giants on Record, on the subject of giant skeletal remains that have been uncovered across the world. Check that one out. The Daily Jeff. I love it. Squatch hunting for Bigfoot in the Cascade Mountains, Arlington, Washington, in the north. The legend date back hundreds of years. Stories of Sasquatch, a giant creature that roamed the forest, have been passed from generation to generation and continue to this day, despite no concrete proof that the creature exists. I wouldn't say that. There's footprints. Hundreds and hundreds of individuals' footprints. Those are pretty concrete. Anyhow, some not only believe in Bigfoot, they say they've encountered it. That's right. Anchors Bill Wixley, along with the photojournalist Walker Anderson, went deep into the woods of the Cascade foothills to hear stories. Check it out for themselves. Well, there you go. You can check it out. Q13 Fox, all local. I don't even care what that guy found out. He sounds like a dweeb to me. Yowies could be out there. That's right. Survival expert, the Bush Tucker man, warns Australians not to dismiss a spate of sightings in Australian bushlands. That's right. Yowies could be hiding away in uncharted rainforests in North Queensland, a famous survival expert has claimed. Much love Australian personality, less hidden. Get it? Get it? Hidden. Known for the hit 1980s program, the Bush Tucker Man said the recent spate of Yowie sightings should not be scoffed at all. I suppose it could be out there, and if it was, I really think it would be living in the rainforest areas. I believe some Aboriginal people talk about it as being the hairy man, the 72-year-old told the Townsville Bulletin. Well, there you have it, folks. According to that guy, Yowies are real. That's right. We're going to be talking about the Six Rivers. That's right. Orleans Ranger District Office coming up. But first, it's time to hear our Quasi Theory of the Week. That's right. So let's give it a listen here with Mr. Dean Cooper. Oh, it's here somewhere. There we go. And now, Quasi Theories from a Quasi Scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
Schrodinger's cat and the trousers of time. At the end of last week's Quasi Theory, I made the mistake of mentioning Schrodinger's cat. I've been told by a higher authority, i.e. the Reverend Jeff, that I should somehow expand on Schrodinger's famous thought experiment, even though I specifically said that, and I quote, I refuse to explain Schrodinger's cat. Erwin Schrödinger devised his thought experiment in 1935 to illustrate a problem in applying a quantum mechanics idea to larger complex systems. The idea was that at the atomic and smaller level, quantum systems like electrons, atoms, protons, and such, the actual state of the system is a sort of superposition of all possible states that system could possibly have. It isn't until an outside observation is made that the superposition of all possible states collapse into one specific state. The observer can be anything from another quantum system getting close enough to interact with the system under consideration to a real experimental physicist who does real things and doesn't just play around with mathematics all day. Schrödinger named this weird-ass connection between the observer and the observed entanglement. Although being Austrian, he actually named it Verschränkung, which means, oddly enough, entanglement. So Schrödinger thought that this whole entanglement thingy was absurd, especially since it surely didn't seem to be happening to anything in the normal world. He took, purely in thought, his cat and stuck it in a box. He put a mechanism in the box with the cat, presumably in a way that the cat couldn't play with it and thereby muck up the thought experiment. The mechanism had a bit of radioactive material, a Geiger counter, a trip hammer, and a vial of hydrocyanic acid. When the Geiger counter detects the decay of an atom of the radioactive material, it triggers the trip hammer to smash the vial. The hydrocyanic acid evaporates and becomes cyanide, and presto changeo, the cat is dead. There's only a teensy bit of the radioactive stuff, so there's only a small chance at any moment that the cat will be killed. Now, if the whole quantum entanglement theory works on big things, too, the radioactive decay will or won't happen until we open the box. The cat is therefore both dead and alive until we take a peek in the box. Now, here's where it gets weird. Quantum entanglement has been experimentally shown to be real. It has been shown to be real in experiments using around 10 million electrons, as well as 10 million photons. And here's where the trousers of time enter the scene. We have all become familiar with the idea that at any given instant, when we make a decision to do one thing or another, our timeline splits, like the legs of a pair of pants, thereby producing an alternate universe. There's a timeline where we had chocolate instead of vanilla. There's a timeline where we chose strawberry instead. If we're picking from amongst Ben and Jerry flavors with Baskin Robbins thrown in, the legs of the trousers of time become more like pants for a millipede. Schrodinger's cat had only two choices, alive or dead. I ask you, is that poor kitty therefore a zombie? My thanks to the late Terry Pratchett for the beautiful trousers of time metaphor. This has been Dean Cooper, quasi-scientist, enlightening you with my quasi theory of the week. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. That's BHAIDIN.com.
Well, there you have it, the quasi theory of the week. And for those of you out there that are of the praying kind, just send some good karma and good thoughts your way to Dean and his family. We'll just leave it at that. We're with you, buddy. All right. And with that, it is now time for our camping tips for stupids of the week. That's right. A brand new from the mind of Gone Camping Channel's Jevin Moore. Here you go. Camping tips for stupids.
Camping tips for stupids. Tip number 82. The summer season is in full swing, and in a lot of parts of the country, it's dry and hot, which means fire ban season. From around July to the end of September, it's too dangerous to risk open flame campfires out in most campgrounds. No more staring off into the glow of the bed of embers, lost in deep thought, wondering why your feet have short, stubby fingers that you can't do anything with. Seriously, what the fuck is up with that? Well, one alternative to comfort of the campfire is the camp lantern. More specifically, the propane double mantle lanterns. Going all the way back to my childhood, when we couldn't have a campfire, we would sit at the table with this big noisy lantern hissing away as we sat around playing cards or eating late night dinners. Ever since then, there is just something comforting and soothing to this damn thing that is also nostalgic for me too. So if you don't already, collect yourself one, and always remember to pre-burn new mantles with a match before actually lighting them with gas. This has been Camping Tips for Stupids. Remember to spay and neuter your idiot population.
Spay and neuter that idiot population. That's right. Right there with Camping Tips for Stupids. Yeah, I mentioned at the top of the show that I had a real interesting interaction this afternoon. I'm quite critical of things that people who claim to be experts, staying in line with the name or the factual availability of what it is to be Bigfoot. Anyhow, I finally got some interaction with Dr. Meldrum regarding his affiliation with Todd Standing and whether he does, in fact, or does not stand behind the evidence that Todd Standing has brought forth to the community. And it was it went on for quite some time. And really, I'll be honest, I didn't make any statements. He always assumes that I make statements about him, but I don't. I Van Danikened him. I just asked questions. There was a whole lot of question marks on everything that I just wanted some clarification of whether he does or does not believe that the Muppet Head is a real Bigfoot. Does he believe that Blinky is a real Bigfoot? Does he believe that the devil face is a real Bigfoot? And I have to be honest with you. Well,
especially that video of the devil, as you refer to him, the dark-faced individual. I can't look at that image and not feel that I'm looking into the eyes of a living creature.
he doubled down on it. He never actually said that, by the way. That whole thing is stitched together by Todd Standing. He accused me of putting words in his mouth when Todd Standing is actually the one that put words in his mouth. I did get him to admit that he had reservations about Todd Standing's authenticity before he went into Bigfoot North, before he went on expeditions with him. However, he claimed to reserve judgment until later, whatever that meant. He wanted to discount what professional special effects artists have said about the Todd Standing presentations being nothing more than poor, especially the first one, a horrible attempt at a flocked character. I mean, it's literally Muppet Head, to which Dr. Meldrum posted a picture of 4 different kinds of chimpanzees and wanted to know, was I rejecting it because it wasn't what I expected it to look like a Bigfoot? And my reply was no, I rejected it because it has flocking, fun fur, taxidermied eyes, and you can tell that it's a poor attempt at a fraud. So we went back and forth, and ultimately it came down to he wanted to know just why did I care? Why, Jeffrey Kelly, why do you care what I have to say on Todd Standing, or why it has to be in public? And I simply replied to him, it's like, because you, sir, are the one who have set yourself up to be the world's foremost expert on Bigfoot. And what you say goes. What you say is true. So if you put your faith in Todd Standing, you now have millions of people who will put their faith in Todd Standing. And you don't even believe in him. But you won't go on record until now as to beat around the bush that you might not believe that he's a hoaxer, but you don't believe that there's a smoking gun, even though his videos were talked about being filmed in a place, in a location that's impossible to get to, that doesn't actually exist. These are some of the issues that I have with Discovery Channel's Bigfoot expert Don Jeffrey Meldrum says. I mean, he might as well be an ancient alien terrorist at that point. And that just totally ruins any credibility that we have as investigators, as any of the evidence that gets put forward. We're just a bunch of loonies out here running around. If the one guy in the academic world who's supposed to be on the up and up is literally working with the one guy who 90% of us out here can pretty much agree is a fraudulent turd. I don't know. So I feel like I went round and round with Dr. Meldrum on everybody's behalf. It wasn't just mine. Everybody's looking for these answers as to why he's working with Todd Standing, and nobody's gotten them. So that's interesting. I can't see. Oh yeah, that's because I'm not looking at it. Dear, I was trying to figure out why I couldn't see the live chat, but I can't. So anyhow, that is actually over on Dr. Meldrum's. I believe it's on his public page, not on his private page, and it's under the FBI thing. He was answering people's questions, so I figured I'd post a question and see if I could get a response out of him, and I did. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, I used to care. I used to care what Dr. Meldrum thought. I used to follow what Dr. Meldrum thought. I used to really think that he might have a real good lead on what, Bigfoot is. But if you can't be logical in looking at a presentation of just say the Muppet Head, the very first thing that Todd Standing put out there being the fake, if you can't look at that and say, Jesus Christ, what are you kidding me? Then I can't trust you to analyze anything. And why are you in it? I don't understand. If you're in it for the fame and the money, you've done it wrong. I mean, you're not a millionaire. I mean, you're just taking cash from stupid people and making yourself lose credibility in the shortcoming of it. It makes the rest of us who believed in you, bought your books, followed your lectures, believed in what you were trying to do, made us all look like fools. That was when I cared. Now I just don't care anymore. I really, really don't. I'm not going to stop looking for the truth of it, but that's what it came down to. It was about an hour-long interaction with Dr. Meldrum, and I came away with I don't know. I came around with a bunch of beating around the bush and no real answers. So it was kind of strange. All right. With that was my interaction with Dr. Meldrum today. But hey, after years of trying to get him to actually say something in public, he finally responded, and we got some kind of understanding of his thought process, but not really. It really, I even brought up the interspecies communicator, like she could talk to Bigfoots. I'm confused. On an empath level, he says. She never claimed to actually speak the Bigfoot language, mind you. It's just kind of on a feelings empath level. Okay. Next thing we'll know, we'll be talking about Mongolian death worms. Hey, it's time for shout outs to the hangout people. That's right. You're hanging out with me. I'm here. You're there. Makes the whole thing fantastic. And I see Miss Bella, Miss Maria. Hello. Glad you are out there with us. Mr. Shane Barber. He's with us tonight. Natalie Smith. I saw it was Cheryl's birthday. I wished her a happy birthday, and we all do miss her. It's such a shame she didn't quite make it this far. Tim McCune. Hey there, man. I'm glad you are with us, sir. Hanging out. That's right. Who else is in the house with us tonight? Move down here. You guys are chatting early on. I love that. Josu Salazar. Hello. I'm just gonna call you JS, man. I still don't know how to phonetically say that. I apologize. Somebody correct me and get me a phonetic use of Yosu or Josu. Hosu. It's not Jesus. Anyhow, Lance Windsor. That's right. He's from the Great White North. Glad you're up there with us as well, buddy. There's the life and times of JCM. Mr. Gone Camping himself. Jeb and Moore. How you doing, buddy? Glad you got in there. Keith Harden, how you doing there, man? Glad you are with us as well. All right. Kin. Dun, 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 dun. Kin. How you doing there, champ? I'm glad to see you. There's Mr. Dean Cooper, our quasi-scientist himself. Mr. Donald Fuller's in the house. How you doing, sir? Glad to see you as well. Dave Jackson, there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. All right. Dave Chartier. I'm probably right on that because it looks French. Is it French? I believe it is. Let's see here. Who else is in the house tonight? Isaac Ariola. Hello there. Glad to see you. I had to focus my eyeballs there for a moment. It was a little blurry. All right. Cody S. How you doing there? Have I ever wondered if Bigfoot watches your videos? I'm sure they have found a lost iPhone or two by now. Probably are checking out the Squatchers Lounge podcast. That's right. Means robust hairy frog. That's right. Okay. Here we are moving on down the line. There, Can Squanch is checking in. How you doing there? Glad you're with us. There's the Viking, Mr. Don Reif. I got your message earlier, sir. Hey, we may make it up to the Fire Festival. I will check that out because I've been wanting to do that. I missed it last year. So maybe I will get to hang out with you up there. We will check it out. Mysterious Journals by Dee. Hello there. Glad you are with us today as well. Let's see. We are moving on up to the east side to Deluxe Forest in the sky. Obsidian Radio is checking in. There he is. The Sam Squanch Rivera. There they is as well. Moving down here, let's see here. Aaron Duncan's in the house. Hello there, Aaron. You're Hobo Man 5. There you go, buddy. Glad you are with us as well. Tom Green. I hope that's the real Tom Green. I'm glad you are here with us. There's the Huck Outdoors. Man, we missed you on this trip. I wish you to come up, buddy. You will have to go next year. We'll do a trip to the Mecca next year because once you see what happened this year, you'll definitely want to come back. That is for sure. All right. Okay. I missed some people. So that was Kenneth Graham, Tom Graham, not Tom Green. Lewis, there he is. I'm glad you're in the house with us as well tonight. Easy Rider, there he is. The man I rode to Bluff Creek with. He's with us. Root Man is with us as well. All right. Edward McElliott. Got to be a Scotsman. It's the only way for people to put a Mick in front of Elliot, I'm sure. How you doing there, champ, as well? All right. If I missed anybody, make sure you put it down a comment in there, and I will definitely get back to you as well. Yeah, let's hear the goods. I know, man. So yeah, we got canceled out a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, real life does happen, and it does take precedence over Sasquatch. So our little group kind of fell apart. But Jonathan, there, Easy Rider, he was just determined as hell that he was going to go to Bluff Creek this year. Says, you know what? In 2 weeks, I'm going to run a truck, and we're just going to go do it. I'll come get you, and let's go to Bluff Creek. And I'm like, well, let's go do it. So yeah, Sunday night after work, man, he blasts up from Long Beach, and early Monday morning we're packing in the truck to head to Bluff Creek. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get started quite as early in the morning as we would like to have, but that's a long ride. It was 5 hours plus to Willow Creek, and then it takes a good 2 hours to get from Willow Creek all the way down into Louse Camp and actually get to the camp and parked. But it is just the most beautiful country. It's insane. I haven't posted up a lot of pictures of it because I'm actually waiting for Jonathan to finish his movie and to finish his video and put it up on his channel. Because we've pretty much got nearly identical pictures and videos of things. But it was an an absolutely amazing trip. We got out there about, I want to say it was 5:30 or so on Monday evening, where we actually got down into Louse Camp, and we weren't there and even picking out spots for 10 minutes, and up rides Brown Dwarf. We had got together. He lives down in Arcata, and he decided to come up, and he was up there for one night with us, and he came up and set up camp with us the first night. And I gotta tell you, that guy's legit, man. That guy definitely can be on any squatching trip that I go on ever. He, man knows exactly what he's doing. He's prepared to squatch. But he was familiar with the area. On the way into Bluff Creek, he had into Louse Camp. He had actually run into Bobo. That's right, the famous James Bobo Fay. And stopped and talked to him. Bobo had been staying at Louse Camp for the 2 nights prior that we had already been out there, and told him to go up and check out Onion Lake. So while Brown Dwarf was waiting for us to show up there in Louse Camp, he went ahead and rode up Onion Lake Road up to Onion Lake and checked out what was going on up there around that beautiful pea soup green lake. That poor thing has absolutely no flow whatsoever. It was so thick with algae this late in the summer, because it's got full sun all day long, that you couldn't even see the fish swimming in it. You could see them hitting. They were definitely those little perch things, those little striped perch things in there were definitely in there, but you definitely couldn't see anything in that pea soup. And they've got one of the Bluff Creek Project guys have a camera up there on Onion Lake. So anyhow, the first night we pretty much we got into camp so late, we pretty much had time to set up camp, get a fire going, have a little bit to eat, and just kind of chill in camp and start doing some calls. Louse Camp, where it's at, is literally, you go 20 miles or 17 miles up the Go Road, and then you go, which is 17 miles away from any point of your last civilization. I mean, there's no gas stations on that road. There's no people on that road. There's no nothing on that road. It just goes right up into the middle of the national forest. And then you hang a left off of there onto one of the forest roads, and you go in another 7 miles. So, I mean, you really are in there as it is. And Louse Camp has been known to have sightings. Bobo's had a sighting there. There's been sightings in Louse Camp for, probably as long as people have been going there. It's also the camp that was there in 1958 during the Tom Slick expedition that was set up there after Jerry Crew found the prints along the logging road in 1958, which actually coined the word Bigfoot. So we're, I don't know Glenn, Jonathan doesn't know Brown Dwarf. So we're just all hanging out, getting to know each other real good. Doing some calls in the night, doing some hoops and some howls and listening for returns and, talking back and forth. There's actually, if you go to Brown Dwarf's channel, there's actually some audio, the video of us around the campfire, just talking about different topics. We were talking about DNA. We were talking about shooting one. We were talking about a bunch of different stuff. It was funny. What I'm going to talk about here later what we were talking about ahead of it. But so Monday night we stayed up. We were. It was a long day. Jonathan really hadn't gotten any sleep in before he got up to me. So, come dark when the sun when the sun was gone, the stars were out. You could actually see the Milky Way out there. I mean, we were literally moonless. It was pitch black in the sky, watching satellites go by. Had to have been 2 or 3 satellites that first night that Jonathan was able to pick out of the sky. You're like, well, there's another satellite. I was like, are we sure that's not a UFO? He's like, yeah, it has lights on it. Like, good point. Why would a UFO actually light itself up? So the first night we went to sleep. It wasn't really all that eventful. I mean, everybody was so tired. Unfortunately for me, I didn't bring my redwood straps again, and my hammock setup didn't work for me. So I ended up sacking out in a brand new Chevy Suburban. Oh, my heart bleeds for me. It was pretty comfortable. Not all that great the first night, but didn't get much sleep. I was up at the first crack of dawn. And I got to tell you, even as hot as it is all around the valley right now, Louse Camp is a natural swamp cooler. The air comes down out of the mountains, blows up the creek, gets off of that cold 40-something degree water at night, and just rushes up to the ground level over Louse Camp. And it was in the 40s in there early morning after moonrise. Moonrise was somewhere after 2 a.m. is when moonrise was. Between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. is when the moon would come out. And it was a half moon. It was pretty bright over top. There was definitely enough to see by out there. I never used my headlamp. I didn't use a flashlight, even dark night moon. I had enough eyesight that I really didn't use a whole lot of natural light at all. I got up the next morning. It was cold. I was blowing smoke. I mean, you can see my breath. I kicked the fire up and we got warm and sat around and had some breakfast. And then we all headed up with Brown Dwarf in his Toyota up to Onion Lake to check it out. I had been up there, of course, with the Bluff Creek guys the last time I was up there. We figured we'd go up and do some calls and some squatching and see if we could find any tracks. The fellows hiked around the backside of the lake while I checked out the fire pit and the other areas. And basically, what's strange about Onion Lake Camp, there's a little campground there, and it's probably good for 2 or 3 people to camp in there. Maybe two vehicles would be kind of comfortable in there, but the camp literally sits right on what looks to be a bear trail. Like I mean, literally, we were interacting with a fellow that had been up to Onion Lake not long ago, and he said that he had the weirdest, strangest sounds that happened on his in his camp at night. And he had 3 or 4 game cans set up around the area looking at camp, and when they got up in the morning, it was a bear taking a giant deuce outside of his tent. And I thought to myself, that was the strangest thing, that little camp is actually built nearly directly on a bear trail. Whatever. People don't use them all that often. Louse Camp, other than like the holiday weekends or festivals for some of the natives, then other than just like a day trip where people come up to the Blue Boil and go swimming in the Blue Pool and go swimming, there really isn't a whole lot of people expected to be. Animals don't expect people to be in Louse Camp. So we got up to Onion Lake and we did some squatching around up there, and we did some road squatching and came back down Onion Lake Road. So we decided to take a ride out to the berm road that gets you down to the hike that takes you down to the Patterson-Gimlin film site. Now, of course, we're still talking about Monday morning. It's probably, I don't know at this time. It's 11:30ish or so. And, we get up to the berm road and ride it all the way down until it ends. And it's exactly what it is. They decommissioned the road. There used to be a giant culvert in one of the creek crossings that they ended up collapsing, and they ended up taking out. And when they did that, they decommissioned the road. And the way they decommissioned the road is they just bulldoze in great big 20-foot tall piles of berms of dirt and make it nearly impossible to get across. So, they decommissioned the road some time ago. There was a rock slide that's in there. We got to the berm road, got out, and we did some howls. Now, where that berm road ends is basically the exact ridge that sits over top of the bowling alley, which is just north of the Patterson-Gimlin film site. So we were out there. Of course, we were looking for tracks. There's, the animals in the area were thick through there. Did some calls, did some yells. Didn't really get too much of a reply. Kind of hung out. The guys did a little bit of hiking down the berm, checked it out, and then we went back to camp to fire up some lunch and check out the blue boil and all that was back there. Unfortunately, Brown Dwarf had to pack up and get back home. He only had the one night with us, so Jonathan and I were going to be in Loud's camp on Tuesday by ourselves. Now, Tuesday afternoon, while we were doing calls and I was doing some wood knocking with some of the firewood that we had, I have an aggressive call that I use sometimes. I don't do it all the time. It just depends on the situation. And Rowdy and I were kind of having a discussion at camp on Wednesday, and we'll talk about that in a minute, who Rowdy is. But, what do these calls mean? When you're out there screaming in the night and you're expecting a Bigfoot to yell back at you, are you saying, hey, lover, come get me? Are you saying, yo, bitch, I own the house? Are you saying, I want to fight, I'm drunk? I mean, who knows what you're actually saying? I have an aggressive primate set of calls that I use that I heard when I was in Florida that no doubt should have been a Florida skunk ape, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call them down there, that was really close to my camp, was very unhappy with where I was camping. And I don't do them a lot, but I did happen to do those Tuesday afternoon. And the reason that's kind of important is, again, we sat through the night and did some calls, did some listening, talked a bunch of stuff, Bigfoot. Oh, God, we talked a whole lot of Bigfoot. And we were up until the sun completely went away. You could see the Milky Way was out. It was probably midnight, 1 o'clock before we finally, were settled all the way in. And I had my digital recorder out running that particular night. Just sometime after, and I know it was after the moonrise, it was probably about 3 a.m., which out there, was probably just about 90 minutes to 2 hours before first light. Something screamed out in camp. Whoop, whoop. Now, I was sound asleep. I had already been up to pee. I was back in the truck. I was sound asleep in the front of the truck, just out cold. And it woke me to a sitting erect position. Like, what the fuck? Wait, I know what that was. I've heard that before. Now, Jonathan was in the tent, and he didn't say anything, didn't hear anything, or he didn't say anything, but was awake. I sat there for at least another 40 minutes just waiting for something, some kind of movement, some kind of visual, some kind of audio sound, something. Was waiting for it to come in and rip the door off and beat me to death with it. I don't know. I was waiting for something. Nothing happened, and I drifted off back to sleep. I thought to myself, woohoo, I've got my digital recorder running. We are in business. Well, since I'm not playing you the audio of that bit right now, obviously it's going to be one of those types of situations. Unfortunately for me, and I've never actually noticed it all the years that I've owned this recorder, because I never really run it that long, it had a flaw in the firmware that was in it, and it would only run for 8 hours before it shut off. It did not roll into another file. It just shut off. And unfortunately for me, those whoops were 8 hours and 45 minutes after we started running the audio tape. So when I got up in the morning and I rushed over to the table, I'm like, oh man, cool, we got the audio. No, the recorder was dead. I turned the recorder on. The batteries were low, but they were definitely not out. And I had actually let it run in my pocket for another hour before the batteries were starting to flash. So it definitely should have recorded it. But unfortunately for me, the firmware screwed me and it shut off. Oh, man, I was heartbroken. I was absolutely heartbroken to say that there was no audio of the two whoops that were in camp. But if you've ever watched any of the chimpanzee documentaries, they always got these little border patrol guys that run around the troop, and they're looking for other bad troops and people encroaching on, or other chimps encroaching on their territory. And when they see one, that's the sound they make. They make a whoop, whoop as an alert. And that's exactly like something. The berries were in camp. The red huckleberries were ripe. They were sweet. They were edible. They were everywhere in Louse Camp. Every place we looked, there were red huckleberries fresh in camp. It was like something was coming down the trail eating, not expecting to see a great big white truck and a tent set up in Louse Camp and crap themselves when they came across it. That's literally what it seemed like. And then they just, got to dip out this way, and they were gone. It was just such an unfortunate thing that there's no audio of that particular event. So, we're standing around in camp and it's cold, man. Wednesday morning, it is cold. It's in the 40s till, probably the sun hits camp in there that morning. It really was chilly. We were standing around with hoodies on, with the fire going, trying to warm up. I mean, it really was freaking crazy. And then finally the sun hit camp and I looked at Jonathan and said, hey man, we got to do this. We're going to do the Bluff Creek hike. Let's do it before the freaking heat of the day gets. What time is it? And he's like, it's 10:48. And I was like, oh shit. Well, this is going to suck. So we hop in the truck and we ride back down the berm road and we take a ride out there. And here I've actually got that pulled up. I can show you kind of what that looks like. We'll see if Google has enough friggin' power to take a look at it. This is the difference between Louse Camp and where the berm road starts that actually goes all the way down to Bluff Creek to where the film was actually taken. It's not that far of a trip. It's a mile and a half in. I hate the trip because basically I'm a fat, out of shape old guy. But Jonathan made me look freaking retarded. That kid could have skipped it, holding his kid, riding him on his shoulders and carrying my pack at the same time. But you can see that there's this road that runs from the dot that zigzags all the way down here into the bottoms. And that's the bottom of the berm road and it dead ends. Then you get out of the truck and you walk basically down along this creek line. You cross over the creek, you come down, you cross through this meadow, and you come out down here to the bottom of Bluff Creek. And then you go up the creek to the film site. So we started out on that journey just about noon or close to it that particular day, because it takes some time to drive down in there. We actually had to do some sawing and some cleanup of the trail to get in there with the bigger suburban vehicle. I actually did a bunch of trimming of it myself for future cars, to not have to get out there and trim it next year. To be the truth be told, the day that we took the trip, I wasn't feeling all that well. I had popped up on a fever and I had an infection running in me. And I got as far as Bluff Creek down in the shade, just about 200 yards shy of the film site, when I looked at Jonathan and said, it's on you, bro. Let me explain to you how to get to it. The trail was supposed to be marked. The film site, I know, is marked. I'm pretty sure that 352 is marked. So you just keep going up the creek until you find those marks, and then you know that you're there. I'm going to sit under this tree for the next hour and a half, do some calls, do some vocals out here and see what kind of things we can get. And Jonathan started hacking up through the woods, and it was brutal for him coming off of the creek there, trying to get up to the film site. And that's one of the things that people don't realize is if you get off of the trail that the Bluff Creek guys have set up out there, it isn't all that easy to find this place. I mean, you can understand why it took so long for them to find and verify the film project site itself. So we get down in there and Jonathan's gone for quite a while. I'm just sitting creekside and I'm running Bluff Creek healing water down my back and neck across my jugular. And finally my fever pops and I start sweating bullets and feeling better. And he comes walking back down and, showed me the pictures that he had. And I wasn't positive that it was the film site, but I wasn't, the screen was so small, the conditions. Anyhow, we decided to go ahead and hike out. And, again, he could have hiked out skipping, holding hands with his wife, carrying his friggin' daughter on his shoulder while carrying mine and his gear. I mean, that's the kind of hike it really is. But for the old fat guy that's out of shape, yeah, it took me a good hour to hike back up to the top of the berm. But that's actually half the time that it took me the last time. Oh, yeah, but it did show me that I am still out of friggin' shape and I need to work harder before next year's trip. But if you go out there and you're out of shape and you're not prepared for it, that hill climb back out to the berm is nearly straight uphill, and it is miserable. And the last 200 yards of it is the worst of it. So eat something while you're down there, drink some Gatorade, get yourself some energy to go back up that hill, and you'll be fine. Because I did it, and I'm an old fat, out of shape guy. There's no reason for you to not go down there. Oh, I got a bum knee too. So yeah, there's that. It was an awesome time. Jonathan was a great traveling companion. And I really thought that was going to be it. I was disappointed, unfortunately, that we didn't get any of the Bluff Creek guys out earlier in the week to escort us down to the film site. So we got back in the truck and we went ahead and we went back to Louse Camp. And we went over the 58 bridge, and we did some talking about that, and we did the usual squatching stuff that we were out there. Went back to camp, got some food going, and it was getting to be 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and we're sitting around the campfire just kind of talking, and we'd done some hooping and hollering, and all of a sudden we hear this. Here, let me play that for you again. And then followed right behind that, we hear. Yeah, let me play that one for you again. So after sitting there listening to what, people considered typical Bigfoot calls, we looked at each other after a silence of some time and went, well, we are squatching in places that the squatchers, go squatching. So it very well could be people. However, that late at night, you can hear everything. You can hear the cars coming and going. And we hadn't heard any cars go up Onion Lake Road. And definitely those calls were coming from the ridge over top of Bluff Creek, over top from Onion Lake. And I looked at Jonathan and said, well, if we don't see anybody or hear anybody in the next 20 minutes, I don't really know what to think about that. But lo and behold, in comes the Bluff Creek Project to the rescue. And Rowdy Kelly and his buddy Greg from Oregon showed up after all. So Wednesday night, the Rowdy Kelly showed up for us, and the guys set up tent, and we cooked some food, and we sat around the camp talking, and doing the whole Bigfoot thing. And that's a question that you have is, if you go out there and you're squatching in places that squatchers go squatching, is it just one squatcher yelling to another squatch? Now, of course, I had an idea that if, somebody was going to be coming into Louse Camp that were squatchers like Bobo or Cliff or Rowdy or Jamie or any of those guys, they would definitely stop and scream from up there. We didn't reply only because we weren't sure whether it was legitimate or not. So it was just one of those situations where I would have, rather had it on the recorder, which was running this time, obviously. And thank goodness it was still running. And then Rowdy came into town. We had a good evening. We all sat around. Jonathan got to meet Rowdy, and his buddy Greg were real good people. Sat around the campfire and just burned up all the firewood till, it was late. It was way late. I mean, it was it was after midnight, 1 o'clock before we're like, oh God, we're going to have to get up in the morning, and we were going to get up in the morning and head out of there. But they had talked us into, going back down to the film site. I was like, you know what, guys, I'm not going to go into the film site, but I will definitely sit up at the top of the berm road and do calls and vocals and chill and take a nap while you guys go back down in there and take Jonathan and do the whole Bluff Creek project thing with him. And that's exactly what happened. The next morning, we got up and packed, started getting loaded up. We loaded everything up and decided to get down to the berm road. Now, while we were packing everything out, Jonathan's, well, like I said, he's making a video he's going to release on his channel. We were packing out. He was also doing some recording little segments of Louse Camp while we were packing out of there. And he sent me this 25-second clip that says, dude, I recorded something weird in camp Thursday morning when we were packing out. And I was like, well, what do you mean you recorded something weird? Send it to me. So he sent it to me, and I listened to it. And this is basically what he sent me. There's this little piece of footage where he had turned on the camera, and then you could hear somebody in camp talking away from the microphone. So there's this little weird thing in the middle of that, between the camera turning on and the people in the background. Now, I'm going to show you the wave signatures on this stuff, because it's actually kind of important to get an idea of what we're looking at here. There we go. What's over here to the left on the top is Jonathan turning on and messing with the microphone as he was backing away. What you see all big and scrambled there in the center down the bottom is an enhancement. But as you can see in the actual raw file, there's nothing there. And one little tiny blip of something, but nothing with any real power to it. Nothing with any real compression that the microphone was picked up. And if you look to the right of it, you can actually see where the people were talking in camp. So now I'll play you the enhanced version of whatever that is. Now, whatever the source of that audio is, it's going to be, whatever the source of that audio is, it's definitely going to be outside of camp. And if you look at the next slide, you can actually see where the enhancement comes out. There's Jonathan at the microphone. There's the anomaly in the center of it. And the right side of it is other people talking at 20 feet away. I was able to isolate just the center of that. And that's where that scream, that sound, I don't know, is it Bluff Creek samurai chatter? I'm really not all that sure what it is. We've looped it together, for about 30 seconds to kind of give you an idea of what it's going to sound like. I'm not saying it's a Bigfoot. I'm just saying I don't know what it is. I have no idea none of us heard it with the natural ear. And it wasn't until later when he was going through the discard clips that he actually heard it in the first place. And I was able to bring the enhancement out. So you've got the guy who touched the microphone. You've got whatever this anomaly outside of camp is. and then you can see the people that are talking inside of camp. As another example that might be what those other pictures were, the top picture of this are people talking in camp at the same distance from the microphone as what the people talking in camp were, and the bottom is the actual wave signature of whatever that anomaly sound is. When we were there were no other cars in camp. We actually walked around camp and looked at tracks before we left camp. We did a trash check. We did a fire check. We did a bunch of other things that were in there, and there just wasn't anyone else around there. I just don't really know what to make of it. At that point, we went ahead and we packed out of camp and we headed on up to out to the berm again, and the fellows walked Jonathan down into the into the film site, and I'm sure they were skipping along without me. There's a couple of water crossings there. One of them's pretty easy. The other one's pretty gnarly. It is a natural animal crossing, but I literally almost wiped out on it. Like, that feeling where you're going to fall backwards and cave your head in on a rock? Yeah, I had that feeling for about 10 seconds until I finally moved forward enough to get past it. Crazy time, but I enjoy it. I love it. I want to go back. I'm ready to go back next year. I'm going to train even harder this year than I trained. I'm going to train harder for next year than I trained for this year. I'm going to lose another 40 pounds, and I'm going to get in some kind of better hiking shape because I want to be able to skip up the hill like everybody else does. Damn it. So, I don't really know if anybody out there has heard those sounds that I've got. If you want me to send you a copy of it, I'll be happy to do so. I'll send you the unedited copy of it, and you can enhance it yourself. It is definitely natural to the location. It is 100% authentic, and nothing but audacity, normalization has been applied to it by me whatsoever. So there you have it, folks. That was the Bluff Creek expedition of 2019, and wow, was it fun. I want to go back. You can't beat sleeping at Laos. Although next year I will have a tent and an air mattress. Damn it, I'm done with hammocks in Laos. We were supposed to go and pack in and stay down on Bluff Creek itself, and we didn't do that, and I should have changed my gear, and I didn't, like a dumbass. That's right. At one point I was sitting around the fire. I had my whoopee folded over me like a buffalo blanket. I looked at Jonathan. I just said, call me Dances with Dumbasses. I don't care. I'm going to be warm. All right, people. And there you have it. That, my friends, is going to wrap it up for this edition of the Squatchers Lounge podcast. We do have, of course, two cowboys see Bigfoot in Bluff Creek, the story of Roger and Bob. There you have it. We'll see you next time right here on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. And Rob Robles has showed up. Keith Smith has shown up for us as well. How you doing there? Glad you are with us as well. I want to make sure that I didn't miss anybody else before I go flying on out of here. Thanks, everybody, so much for being here. And may the Squatch be with you. What the hell is that? I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that was a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. These stories are based upon true events. Welcome to another Bigfoot campfire story. As you may know, from time to time, I dig out a classic that just begs for its own telling. And well, this one is way past due. Roger and Bob set out from Yakima, Washington on a week-long quest to investigate Bigfoot tracks and sightings around Bluff Creek, California. This is their story. Well, I'd gotten a call from the guys down in California. The Bigfoot have been moving through the area of Bluff Creek for a few years now, and I've been determined to capture one on film. I've been hunting these things for a long time now. I even wrote a book about it and of the telling of the stories and tales from British Columbia and Washington State. We never really thought a place like Bluff Creek would even hold the critters until 1958. A fellow by the name of Gerald Crew found a Bigfoot track and cast it near a bridge. In fact, that's where the name Bigfoot actually comes from, during the logging construction of a bridge in that same area. Since then, the tracks and sightings have flooded in from the area, and I decided it was time to get this creature on film once and for all. So I started making arrangements to look into that matter once again. I called my good friend Bob up and asked if I could borrow him and some horses for a week search into Bluff Creek, California. Now, Bob wasn't too keen on the idea at first, but after some convincing, he at least agreed to come along and bring us horses so we could get around. Well, I'd recently received another call telling me that they had found 3 different sets of tracks near the same area, and it was there that we were set off to investigate. I brought with me a rented filming camera just like they use for TV and 2 100-foot rolls of film. We had finally gotten down into the area and we camped at a place called Happy Camp. We had searched the area, seeing if we could find any tracks. Sadly, by the time we arrived, the rain had all but wiped out the tracks. So we spent a couple of days on horseback searching the area and decided on the 3rd day to move camp a bit closer to Bluff Creek itself. The logging roads had the area quite easy to get around, sort of. There were large tracts of road from one area to another, but after that, it got pretty wild again. We located a camp near Louse Camp, and we had to stage it up because Louse was full of logging crews at the time, but we were off the main logging road going in. By the time we had camp all set up, it was late in the day, so Bob and I took a short ride around the area, then went back to camp to make dinner and sleep off. Cool chill of the rain. Being October, the night chill got into the 40s, so we kept the fire burning all night. Well, the next morning I awoke to an empty camp. Bob had already set off for a ride, and it was nearly 10 a.m. when Bob returned, and I asked him which area he'd covered for his morning ride. Well, I decided that we'd like to recheck that area that we had saw the evening before, so I grabbed the camera and checked the film. The area was so beautiful, I had already burned through 76 feet of film, just taking film of the surrounding area shots in the forest of Bob and I. Hopefully it'll make the movie someday. Well, I loaded up the saddlebags and I mounted my horse and off we went to explore the watershed. We had come down off of the ridge where the old road had been, and we hit a log jam. That's when the horses began to act all weird. This was definitely abnormal. That was when we first caught the glimpse of the creature. It was crouched down by that log jam, and it rose up. When it did, my horse kicked and rose up on its front legs and threw me back off the ground. I quickly got up and grabbed my film camera and began to run after the creature. There it was in the viewfinder. It was all covered in hair about 60 yards from me and quickly getting away, so I had to get closer. Well, I ran across the shallow creek and I up a little bit of a area and I braced myself up against a tree, got the creature back into the viewfinder. I'm no photographer and I had no idea if this thing was in focus, but it was running and definitely filming. Well, just as I got it really in focus, Bob crossed the creek on horseback, and that's when the creature looked right back at the camera. It's so hard to see through the viewfinder. I can't really see the creature itself without it. Well, Bob was much closer, and the creature turned and quickly started to walk upstream, and that's when the film ran completely out. Click, click, click went the film roll in the device. Well, Bob started off to follow the creature upstream, but there I was with no horse, no rifle. So I yelled for him to come back and wait till I could get my horse back at least. Finally, I got the horses straight. The film roll changed. By then, the creature was long gone. Bob and I had taken the footage of the tracks the creature had left. The sandbar was a result of the flood in 1964 and had made the perfect substructure to hold the tracks of this amazing beast. Was it some sort of people? Some kind of pre-human? Was it a monkey man? I have no idea, but we have to document everything or people won't believe us at all. Well, Bob and I spent the better part of another week meeting people in the area to show them what happened. We called my friend Al, and he got in touch with a man by the name of John Green, who brought a friend named Renee and another fella named Jim to help out. This crew was great, and we cast some the tracks. We searched the area for days, and a fellow by the name of Bob T. He had come by with more casting stuff and searched the area very thoroughly. So much so he even found where the creature had walked up an impossible hill and sat down to watch what we were doing at the site after she had gotten away from us. Well, finally, after no more sightings or activity, we gathered up all the evidence that we had. We had to head back to Washington. I had sent the film out for developing, and they called me down to view it for the first time. There, for the very first time, I got a good look at the creature I filmed in Bluff Creek that day. I didn't get the creature at the log pile like I expected, but I did manage to get several good seconds of it as it walked the sandbar and looked back at the camera. It was nearly perfect. No doubt about it, this had to be a Bigfoot. This was no person at all. I had to make me 2 copies of it right away, as I knew this would change the world's look at mankind. It took several days, but finally I had the film in hand. I put a presentation together the best I knew how, and I showed it to the scientific world of my findings. Most of them wouldn't even look, and those that did just laughed and called it a hoax. As if I had some time to play games and make stuff up. This was the discovery of a lifetime, and no one believes it's real. Finally, we took our tour on the road. Bob was not really into the roadshow game, so he stayed behind, but I tried city after city in state after state. And although many people talked about it, and it even getting on the news, without some blood or some body part, there was no way to prove what we filmed. Finally, with my health declining, I brought everything back home once again. Our friend Renee had taken the film overseas and shown it to the British and Russian scientists, but only the Russians would even consider the idea of such a creature. And with the fanfare went away, well, to this day, people still talk about the Bigfoot of Bluff Creek. Sadly, Roger died not too long after that part of the story ended. His wife, Patricia, holds the rights to the film, and for the right amount of money, she'll let you put it in your Bigfoot video too. We still argue if Patty, the Bigfoot film that day, is a real or it's a hoax, and no one can still prove it either way, even with all of the technology updates in place. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.